Nick Saban and Alabama reach back into the transfer portal and add in Tyler Steen, a top 10 player in the transfer portal, to come in and bolster this offensive line unit for the Crimson Tide. A move we need to talk about because satisfied and complacent are two words you cannot attach to Nick Saban. We need to talk about what this means, what I'm expecting, and everything involved in this. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I need to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes, N for no. Are you excited about Steen being added into the fold for the Alabama Crimson Tide? And let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, like and comment down below, as those interactions, though small, are massive to content creators such as myself in growing our platforms. And we're on our push to 15,000 subscribers, and I'd love to have you a part of the community. But with all that being said, let's hop right into this. And this is something that Tide fans have been watching closely for a while. Tyler Steen is an individual that has got a lot of positive starting experience at Vanderbilt, 30 plus games. And it's already difficult enough to get a top-tier offensive lineman via the transfer portal. But it becomes even increasingly more difficult for that offensive lineman to have the experience that Tyler Steen does. You just don't see those guys leaving their institutions. However, at the point where one does, they typically don't sit in the portal for long, and there are several suitors, and that's exactly what we saw with Tyler Steen, where several suitors emerged really rapidly, something that wasn't inherently surprising to me. But what does Tyler Steen bring to the Crimson Tide? And we need to understand this is someone who graded pretty well in the run grade, not as well in the passing grade, but hopefully new offensive line coach can work him through that. That's something that can continue to progress because that is going to be an area of need for the Crimson Tide. But we need to be very real about Alabama's offensive line. That was an inconsistent unit at best last year, and they lose the potential #1 player in the NFL draft, Evan Neal, off of it. So a unit that was already inconsistent has more holes added into it now with guys leaving for the NFL, and now you're in a scramble to try and fill those holes. And yes, by all accounts, it sounds like J.C. Latham is having a really positive spring camp, and he might look to sew up one of those tackle positions. Tommy Brockermeyer is a name that I'm very high on. I remain high on him, and here's what I'll say there. Brockermeyer was an individual that probably needed to gain some weight his first year in the system anyways and get acclimated to the college system. That's not unheard of for offensive linemen, and in fact, that's the norm with offensive linemen. But we also need to remember Brockermeyer experienced injuries during his freshman year, which really set him back, especially someone who was already trying to build their body up to be at the right size for the college game. Doesn't mean he's not a very talented prospect, and it doesn't mean once he gets right, he won't boom, because I think he will, and I'm very excited to see it, but it's all about getting him right. However, in the meantime, there's still an active competition going on for offensive line, and Nick Saban and company are looking at it saying, we can roll the dice and hope everything will be A-okay, but we have Bryce Young back there. He just won a Heisman. We have Jahmyr Gibbs back there. We've been singing his praises, and we know what he can do. By the way, Trey Sanders is apparently coming back into his own, and that guy right there might have the best story in college football. Actually, scrap that. There is no might. That guy right there has the best story in college football. You want to make sure you put him in a position to be successful. You see the wide receivers. Jermaine Burton's really bursting on the scene, and though there's a lot of unknown outside of that, though more needs to be worked on, I'm high on the talent they have. But it's all for nothing if the offensive line doesn't come together. And so when you're sitting there looking at this situation and you see, okay, well, there are some areas we feel good about, others we don't. When a Tyler Steen enters the transfer portal with the starting experience he possesses, it's hard to say no to that individual. And inevitably, Alabama's very happy they get to add Steen into the fold. And at least at face value, he can come in and compete for one of those tackle positions because that's where he got his starting experience at both left and right tackle. So he has that familiarity with both sides of the line. And another thing we need to talk about is that Alabama has injuries on the offensive line right now, which creates an interesting dichotomy that's both positive and negative. The positive, it allows for more individuals to get deeper reps that maybe they wouldn't have gotten if the other guys were there. It allows for more continuity to be grown in the offensive line room and more depth to come about. The negatives is it doesn't allow the continuity amongst your presumptive starters, which is a big deal. And sure, it's only spring. I get that. But you only have so many reps as a unit before the season start, and all of those are important at some level. So getting in Tyler Steen is a very powerful thing for Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. This is an offensive line that looks to get it together, because if the offensive line gets right, I shudder to think about what Bryce Young and this offense could do to opposing defenses. Bryce Young was already carving apart defenses in his first year starting, and half the time he was running for his life. If you give him time, I don't know who can stop him, because we saw top defenses really struggle to stop him, even though they were able to get him out of the pocket with consistency. It didn't matter. He was still carving them up while running for his life. That is what makes Bryce Young so special. That is why I was so high on him, and that's why I think he could repeat as the Heisman Trophy winner. All of which are lofty. All of which are deserved. He's going to put his head down, he's going to keep working, but it all relies on the offensive line. If that unit comes together, sky is the limit for what this Alabama football team can look like, because I'm hearing really positive things about the defense. It's just all on this offensive line, a unit we're going to be watching closely, and especially with A-Day upon us this weekend, y'all already know. I can't wait to hear from y'all. Hop down to the comments. I want to hear about the Tyler Steen edition. I want to hear about your thoughts on the offensive line, and I've got to hear your thoughts on A-Day. That's it. See ya.